Thank you all so much for being here. Some of you we've chatted already. Some of you are brand new. I sent a little intro email, so hopefully you get a bit of an idea of what to expect. But as I said, I really am passionate about creating a village. If this is your first time or second time, when you've had that baby, and if you're anything like me, my other half went back to work after 2 weeks, I was really relying on my NCT group. It's a large cost to pay NCT to make some friends. So if any of you fancy meeting up, I can organise coffee in a local cafe on a Saturday morning or something like that. But yeah, I can drop that in an email afterwards. So let me share my screen. So what I'll do, I'll go through some slides. I'm going to talk about some main points that I talk about in my hypnobirthing groups, some things that I think are really important when thinking about birth preparation. I won't harp on too long, probably about 40 minutes, 30 minutes. And then if there's any questions at the end, please take yourselves off mute and ask me. I work a lot with Luton Hospital, Lister Hospital, now and again Watford. I don't do that much with Watford really. So if you've got any specific questions about what's going on in Luton and Lister at the moment, again, please ask away. I'm part of their MVPs. Nobody knows what an MVP is. Most trusts have a partnership, a group of people, and they're called MVP, and they all have Facebook groups, and you have like bi-monthly meetings and stuff like that to kind of keep up to date with what's going on in the trust where you're having your baby, which is a really good idea. Right, let me share my screen. So we are here today to chat about the importance of birth prep and to talk a bit more about hypnobirthing. Does anyone know, first of all, like, you may have heard hypnobirthing, you may have thought it sounds a bit wacky. Does anyone have a clue what it is? And you it doesn't have to be yes, you know, by the way. So drop in the chat if you have any idea what to expect with me talking more about hypnobirthing. If it's nothing, it's fine as well. If I don't hear anything, I'll assume you don't know. Completely new to it, first time mum, cool. It's not that scary, by the way. The word hypnobirthing's got a bit of a funny rep. People imagine like chanting in circles, dancing around, humming. That's okay. Carly, allowing your body to take the lead and tell you what is right. Yeah, for you and natural. Yeah, that is part of it. Your mind, we're going to talk about that today, is, as we know, it's so in charge. And making sure your mind's at the right place is really, really important. Kirsty, feels a bit like mindfulness. Yes, yeah, it is absolutely that. I believe a lot in mindfulness after my son was born. He's 5 now. I went through a bit of a dark patch when he was about 1, and mindfulness really helped me. Again, that sounds like a weird word. I don't do any like sitting on rocks or anything like that. It's just about being aware of your mind being in charge, and things like panic attacks. Obviously, it's all in the mind. It's funny, Carly said natural. If you go and everything's natural, amazing, but also hypnobirthing supports all birth options, all birth scenarios. I do hypnobirthing for C-sections, consultant-led units, obviously then home births and midwife-led units as well. So, quick thing about me, I won't hop on too long. I did first put just this picture of us like paddleboarding in Wales, and I was like, that's not really a true representation of our family life. So I put some like reality chocolate in there as well. So as you may tell, I am Welsh. I live in Harpenden now, been here about 7 years, but originally from West Wales, in Aberystwyth. I trained as a hypnobirthing teacher when my son was 1 after being made redundant from my events job, which was quite a stressful time. So obviously I had a really good birth. It wasn't to plan at all. And I think you have to be really careful when thinking about birth plans, be open-minded. It ended in a bit of drama, but it was all fine. I felt really calm. So trained to be a hypnobirthing teacher when he was about 1, did it around him and family. Supported over like 100 couples. It was really busy during lockdown on Zoom. And now I'm trying to focus more, unless you live in West Wales, kind of in person, building that village, meeting up with people, because I think we've all missed that, especially people with young families. And somebody said that already, yeah, birth prep. So hypnobirthing is a birth prep antenatal class with mindfulness at its heart, and the hypno side of it comes in is training your brain. So I work with a lot of people who are really anxious about birth, and it was weird because I asked them the question when you signed up, like, how are you feeling about your birth? I had 21 people sign up, and 9 of you said they were anxious. Some people said scared, nervous, and then also 8 or 9 of you said positive, good, and excited. So yeah, I do work with a lot of people who are anxious about birth, and it's about training your brain. So if you haven't got a clue what birth is, you've probably seen these dodgy things on TV over the years. And our brain is kind of wired to imagine this is what birth's going to look like. And it annoys me every time there's a TV show with a pregnant person, the birth's always drama. I've been watching the new series of Virgin River, a bit of trash on Netflix, and there's like a dodgy birth. I'm like, why is this birth on TV always have to be scary? So it's about rewiring your brain, because your brain's very much in charge. I'm also a birth doula. So last year I trained as a doula. A doula is a funny word. Actually means with woman. No, it's midwife. Doula means something similar. So I do attend births in the area, and then I help people in that postnatal period as a postnatal doula. So I come into your home and look after you while baby's really tiny. And like I said, I'm really passionate about building that village of support. So many people book automatically on, say, an NCT, and a lot of NCT teachers are great, but really you're doing it to make friends. And now we're allowed back. Hold on, somebody else is coming in. Now we're allowed back out in the world. I'm really passionate about bringing people together. So let me get on with it. Sorry, your face is like, okay, you have to move you this side and that side. Like I said, we've been conditioned to think birth will look like this. So TV, cartoons, and you know, looking back, like Simpsons 20 years ago, we were all teenagers watching people give birth, and it's all sunk into our deep, deep subconscious. Rachel from Friends, oh God, what am I called again? I forgot what that's called. That one on the end. People are generally, and you know, if they're American birth is a lot more medicalized. Generally, people are lying on their back in a gown with a blanket over them, with men, usually in white coats, kind of staring at them. So this is what we've kind of been conditioned to assume birth is going to look like. And it may be you birth that way. And if you're happy there, that's fab. But birth can look so different. And yeah, well, it doesn't have to look like this. Yeah, there's always bright lights. There's always people screaming. I remember Ross from Friends, like, useless birth partner. Like, and even taking his coat off. How long, like, what do you think is going to be, like a 10-minute meeting or something? And yeah, I found this on Marge Simpson. Didn't even realise, like, she's got a birth scene in Simpsons along the way. So we've been conditioned to think birth will look like this, and often it's scary. If you've seen any of these dodgy things on the telly recently, this is going to hurt. There was, you know, all the midwife shows, they're dramatized. You know, nobody wants to watch kind of straightforward things on telly. They won't get many views. Apart from, there's a really good one, Yorkshire Midwives. If you want to watch birth, there's a really good series. I think it was BBC or Channel 4, Yorkshire Midwives. It was based on a home birth team in Yorkshire. Best thing I've seen about birth on telly recently. So yes, that's how we've been conditioned to kind of assume what birth would look like. And I kind of wanted, sorry, it keeps clunking, to make you aware birth can look like however you want it to look like. And these are just some screenshots along the way in social media that I thought were quite apt. Screaming your head off doesn't mean you're not hypnobirthing. Like, I hear a lot of people going, oh, hypnobirthing didn't work for me. And it makes me feel a bit confused what they thought hypnobirthing was, because hypnobirthing is a full antenatal education. So yeah, breathing and things help with pain relief, and changing your mindset helps with pain relief, but it's not a pain relief method as such. So yeah, screaming your head off, you can still be hypnobirthing. Catching your baby in the bath can be hypnobirthing. And this lovely couple, just chilling, just breathing, that can also be hypnobirthing. But any of that and all the million things in between is what birth is. We are ruled by our brain, like I was saying. And the really good thing about hypnobirthing is, so there's a bit of practice in a hypnobirthing class. Breathing's a really amazing technique, and I get so many people message me after they have the baby saying, I just concentrated on my breathing and it really, really helped. And we'll talk a bit more about that in a bit. But yeah, training your brain not to be scared. So creating a bit of a bubble, especially towards kind of your third trimester. You don't really want watching that crap on TV. You don't want to hear from your mate across the room about how awful their birth was. You want to start protecting your space, because that's their story. Your story's not going to be like that. And there's no point panicking about Sarah next door's sister-in-law who had an awful thing. People love telling you bad birth stories. So you want to kind of start detoxing your brain a little bit. So listening to the hypnobirthing tracks, which I've got loads, please message me and I'll email you some across. Listening to them on a regular basis, like the mindfulness, if you've ever done Headspace app, Calm app, things like that, where you listen to those calming relaxations. That's what hypnobirthing, the practice of hypnobirthing looks like. So it's listening to those positive tracks, those positive relaxations throughout your pregnancy, have really good effect on you while you're pregnant. And then you can take that into your birth. So if you've been listening to a really nice track about a lovely walk or whatever, and that really calms you down and you feel really chilled, you can take that music into the birth. And what it will do, will automatically remind you to relax. You have to practice. I think this day and age, we're so heightened and we're so busy. We really have to remind ourselves to relax. It's quite a hard thing. I definitely have to right, I'm going to relax. How do I do that? Especially with our phones and stuff that's constant in our face. So when we're anxious, worried, fear, scared, whatever the word you want to use, what that will do, especially if maybe you haven't acknowledged some of them. So it might be that you've got a bit of a weird fear. Yeah, you don't want to talk about it because nobody probably feels the same. You may think, and I'm sure everyone does. What's going to happen on the day when you start in labour or you rock up at hospital, your adrenaline's going to kick in. That's natural. It's going to happen to every single person having a baby. Your adrenaline is going to kick in, and that is your fight or flight response in your brain. And this is, like caveman time, excuse me. This is a caveman time response of trying to protect you. And it's very clever, and it does. Adrenaline does amazing things. But in labour, we don't want much adrenaline. And I talk a lot about hormones and how to encourage the good hormones and things like that in labour. Adrenaline, fight or flight, we don't want to be legging it. We don't have enough fight with our fists. It sends all the blood and the oxygen to your limbs to either fight or run. It makes us in a panic, stress state, and we want to be calm. We want the blood and the oxygen to go to our uterus that's doing all the hard work. We don't want it kind of short breath, you want to be slow. So practicing how to calm and how to relax, to put that adrenaline at bay, again, is another kind of one of these practices that you'll do throughout your pregnancy, hopefully. Because you get into this cycle here on the screen. You're scared, something's going on, you want to protect you. That makes you tense, that makes all the adrenaline go away from your kind of calm. You want your lungs to be really big and chilled, not being like, and that creates pain. Because if you're like that, you're going to be even more tense. And then the muscles that need to work in labour, and it's just cervix, it's your uterus, which is a big muscle. And during your contractions, your muscles are doing that to push the baby down. Clever things going on in your body. You want your muscles to be relaxed and to get on with the job, because people have birthed babies a long time. We have done it. A lot of this fear, I think, more recently. My nan's 92 and she lives in the Midlands, and I saw her a couple of years ago. She was like, "What's this job you're doing?" Like, she was baffled. She'd had 6 kids in her front room in their 50s and 60s. I said, "Oh, people are a bit scared of birth. They want a bit more. What are they scared about?" And I was like, "Well, that's a big conversation to be having on a Saturday afternoon." And she said to me, "I just birthed your mum and all your aunties in this room," and I think it was that same room. I leant over that puff like a stool, had a cup of tea in one hand, a fag in the other, and I just pushed the baby out. What's everyone worried about? And I think things have changed so much. Obviously, we know a lot more now. There's probably a lot or less kind of mortality rates than in the 50s, but I think the medicalisation, the hospital kind of environment causes this fear, this tension. I think social media, TV, all this kind of conversations making us more worried, or more probably generally worried than we were in the 50s, 60s maybe. And that causes pain. So if you're tense and your muscles aren't working, breathing really shallow, your muscles can't work properly and it hurts. A really silly example is if you were to write notes now, you'd just pick up a pad and your muscles would be loose and you'd do a successful scribble. If you were to hold your arm as stiff as you can and not breathe, and try and write, with the stiffest, it doesn't work and it hurts. So your muscles know what to do. Your uterus knows what to do in labor. You need to aid that muscle to do what it can with the hormones, with the breathing, with the relaxation, with the feeling safe. And feeling safe is a big, big thing that I talk about, especially with my doula clients. Doesn't, things could go off plan completely like me, but if you feel safe, things are okay. I was at a birth in June in Luton, and all of the things that happened in the end, she didn't want to be in the consultant-led unit. She didn't want to be induced. She didn't want doctors around her. All of those things happened for various reasons. And at the end of it, that was great. That was amazing. And on paper, I was like, God, that was everything you didn't want. But she felt safe. She felt listened to. She felt heard. She felt supported by me and her partner. She felt like we were listening to all the points that was really important to her. We made sure happened. So the feeling of safe can look really different. So yeah, we want to break this fear, tension, pain thing. And we want to try and, it might look different for everyone, but kind of enjoy seems a bit baffling to first time parents. How can you enjoy it? But the start of labor, if you're early labor, you might only be feeling tightenings every 10 minutes. You can have a really nice time. You want to enjoy it. You want to try and accept that your body knows what to do and relax if possible. So if you're in that positive cycle, adrenaline has gone out the window. And what the hormones you want in labor are the happy hormones, the love hormones, the oxytocin, endorphins, all the good stuff. And oxytocin obviously will look different for everybody. That's your like lovey-dovey hormone. So you produce oxytocin when you're snogging and you're having sex and you're laughing and you're eating really good food and you're dancing around the kitchen to your favorite music. That's when your oxytocin's flowing. And actually, it's a bit of a seesaw effect. So if adrenaline's being produced in the body, it's a seesaw effect. So oxytocin can't. But the good thing is, if you're producing oxytocin, it kicks the adrenaline. They're like rivals, arch enemies, kicks adrenaline away. So oxytocin is what you want. And then endorphins, they're the things that it's like a natural pain relief. The word morphine comes from the word endorphin. So if anyone's like an athlete, I'm sure if you've run a marathon, straight afterwards, you're feeling great, your adrenaline's kicking in, your endorphins are kicking in, you're loving it. And then 12 hours later, you're like, oh my God, my toes are hanging off, Then you feel the pain because your hormones are very clever. I mean, they can do all that stuff. I've never run a marathon, guys. I don't know how it feels. That's what I imagine. I don't know. So yeah, how to break this fear cycle. And of course, everyone's different. These are what I believe. Knowledge is power. I really believe that. I think knowing what to expect, where are you going to have your baby? What does the place look like? All those practical things that you can control. And being in control from a control freak makes you feel a lot better. So what your body's doing and what things can you take in with you and what breathing techniques work for you, and that practice over your pregnancy is really going to help. Kind of the same thing, preparation, You want to know that your other half, whoever you are, or whoever you've got your birth, knows where everything is. They knows what you want and what you don't want. So you might not want to hear words that freak you out. And you tell them, because they're not mind readers. Like if you hate the word pain, which, if you hear the word pain, that might trigger you and think, oh my God, I'm in pain. Just tell them, I don't want to hear that word from any of my labor. And make a list put it on your birth kind of preparation plan. I don't want to hear those words. I don't want to see that person. Like if you've got dogs or other kids, it's their job to sort that out. When you're in labor, you want to stay in your calm zone, and planning all the stuff may not be that. I suppose, and the repetition of the hypnobirthing is confidence in your body. Like some were saying, IVF is quite a tricky one, because if you've been through IVF, or you may have had a really long time trying to conceive, or you may have had a sad miscarriage or something like that, your confidence in your body, you might not be 100%, but please confidence in birth. Have confidence in birth and that it works. And if not, there are other things, there are C-sections, there are inductions, and you can make those really positive by knowledge and preparation. And confidence in your birth partner, if you've got one, or whoever's going to be at your birth, you've got to trust that they know everything that you want and that they know how to keep you safe. Because when you're in labor, once you're in established labor, you kind of go inward, because you're getting through this very big thing your body's doing. You really don't want to be making your adrenaline kick up again. You want to be in your kind of sympathetic mode. kind of your rest and digest mode. You don't want to be thinking about, oh, I want the lights off, why isn't it in the light? They need to know what you want. So have those honest conversations. And a lot of my hypnobirthing partners are like, whoa, I didn't know all this. I'm so glad you came, because it is hard to sit and talk about this stuff generally. You might say, oh, do you know what? I'm going to sit down and talk about birth on Thursday. And then you sit down and you like have your tea and put Netflix on, or your friend comes around, and it won't happen. And like I said, creating that calm bubble to stop that fear. So once you're, whenever you're wanting your pregnancy, start protecting yourself. So stop watching the crap on telly. Stop reading those news articles. Think about how to protect your mind. Because if you're getting rid of some anxieties, you don't want new ones popping in. And be confident. I know it's really tricky because we're quite polite as British people, but be confident. If that person is going like, oh, my doctor had a baby and it was awful, have the confidence to be like, gosh, I'm really sorry that happened. Can we talk about that? And then insert the month after your baby's due, because you don't want to be hearing all these horror stories. If you've got really big fears, really big things, releasing them. If I'm not a counsellor, but if you've got a counsellor or a friend, talking them, voicing them, researching them. If you've got really big fear about cords around baby's neck or something like that may happen, research it and be like, isn't that big a deal? How often does that happen? How high is the risk? How low is the risk? And then like the hypnobirthing, filling your subconscious brain with positivity, and not in a unrealistic way. This is the practice of hypnobirthing, is that kind of repetitive mindfulness stuff, but I am a big believer. That's why I put knowledge at the top. Positivity and reality, I'd say. And trusting the process, trying to enjoy it, which I know sounds mad, but I really enjoyed my labour. And oxytocin for life. Honestly, breastfeeding, oxytocin, stress in life, oxytocin, toddler screaming at you, oxytocin. I always think to myself, why am I stressing out? And I think, I'm just going to put some happy music on, and within 5 minutes, I'm happier. I feel a bit jollier. Also chocolate, but maybe that's not the best habit. Right. Any questions, by the way? Please unmute yourselves. Pop it in the chat as we go along. I can send you these slides if you want them. Let me know. So this is a bit of a image that I like to show people. We've got a bit of a, again, medicalized version of birth. It's kind of like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 centimeters, 10 centimeters, and it's kind of like a linear thing, and it's really not. Think of it as a journey. So you've got early stage of labor starting, you've got active labor, the second stage, things like that. And we'll talk about this. If you want to do any research, you'd learn all about this on the Hypnobirthing course. But these are kind of things that are happening. So the latent phase is when you might feel a twinge here and there, and things are developing a bit more. Early labor, you might be feeling things every 5 minutes, every 2 minutes. It kind of gets quicker as you go along. Active labor, you'll be very inward. And your second stage of labor is like birthing your baby. And then you've got your placenta and things like that going on. Like I said, trying to make that more enjoyable and successful by being informed, prepared, and understanding the process. And how, this is just an idea of what birth may look like for you. You might hate the thought of a bath. You might detest candles. You've got to make it how you want. So I think, this for me sounds pretty nice. Birth pool water is an amazing pain relief. You'd reach for a hot water bottle with period pains. We know hot water is a good pain relief. So in the early stages of labour, getting in your bath or your shower if you're at home, really considering the birth pool. Honestly, for me, it went from thinking I need all the pain relief in the world when I was on the shared ward. Oh God, it was horrible. When I went into my own room, I got in the water and I was about 5 or 6 centimeters, so I was very far along. I honestly remember thinking, I could do this. It was such a difference. It was such a relief. I didn't have any music or candles or anything like that in my labour. But eating and drinking is really important. Your body's going through quite a powerful thing, and being dehydrated can cause a really negative side effect later down in your labour. If they think you're dehydrated, then you'll be stuck on a drip, and then you might have to go consultant-led, and things can change quite quickly. Also, think of your energy. So think of snacks. Late and early phase, you should be trying to eat in a good porridge or bananas or chicken and rice if you've got something tanned, like slow release carbs. And then in early labour, things like if it's a long labour, if you can stomach like sweets or bananas or energy drinks, things like that to keep your energy up. Obviously, if you're suffering with diabetes, please be aware that you can't have all that sugar. We'll talk about positions, I think, at some point. Let me see what's next. Yes. Position is a massive, massive thing. Again, those pictures I showed you are what everyone thinks of birth. Everyone's lying on a bed. If you want to lie on a bed, that's great. If you do, sit up a bit, lie on your left-hand side, put a pillow between your knees. Your body needs a space for things to work in labour. When your baby's in the early kind of latent stage of labour, your body's opening, so your cervix is opening, and what's happening is those muscles in your uterus, they're kind of coiled and then they're kind of top to bottom. What they're doing is they're lifting. Every contraction is a lift, and it's making your cervix open. So they're lifting it up and open, up and open, up and open, and that's a long process. If you're in a good position, you're going to let that happen properly, and it's going to be much easier. So upright and forward is a really good position to be in. Early stage of labour, try and stay mobile, but don't wear yourself out. Lying flat on your back is a bit of a habit we picked up. I think it was Queen Victoria or someone thought it was like not ladylike to squat or lean over a chair. So she started lying flat on her back with a like blanket over her knees. And actually it's really unhelpful. So your baby and your body are working really hard for birth to happen. When you're fully dilated, then your muscles change and they push your baby out. If you're lying flat on your back, so you're kind of, I've got a fake pelvis on my back, I've got it here. Your spine's kind of curved and then your tailbone's here. So if you're lying flat on your back, your baby has to go uphill to be born because of your tailbone. So they're doing a lot of work anyway, and they're probably quite tired, your baby and your body. You want to help that as much as possible. So gravity is on your side. And these are some stats, I think they're quite recent, about kind of the benefits of being upright. And it doesn't mean like bouncing around. Like these pictures are pretty good because they're realistic. You know, she's like on all fours, but being supported, she can chill there, leaning over the bed, hanging off. Like you could have a rope tied to the side of the door and you could hold it with a thing. In the bath, you know, these are all really positive positions, realistic positive positions that you're probably a bit knackered. So yeah, upright, gravity's on your side, your body can do what you need to do. When your baby's descending down your pelvis, when it hits your pelvic floor, your baby spins a whole 180 degrees to be born. So optimal. So the head comes down, they shift to the shoulders can come through your pelvis and they shift again to be born. You want that to happen with ease. If you're lying flat on your back, it's going to be a mission. People lying flat on their back, you've had an epidural, for example, and you can't use your legs. If you can see my little thingy, like this lady's being monitored. So she's probably consulted, like she's being monitored with those straps on her tummy. Doesn't mean she's sitting on the bed. She's leaning over. She's kind of using that downward motion. You could sit up like that. Like I said, if you've had an epidural and you really can't feel your legs, moving the bed upwards, lying on one side and having, I'm not sure if you've heard of a peanut ball, it's a bit a peanut shape, or a pillow between your knees so your knees aren't shut tight. That can be really beneficial. But look at the stats, like creating space in that pelvis. And when you actually lean forward, if you, at some point in your life, hold your hips when you're standing up. When you lean forward, the space increases. You know, these ligaments are meant to move. And when you lean forward, the space in your pelvis makes more space. So the baby can be born easier. You know, this is basic science. So the space can increase to up to 30%. Surges can work better, so the contractions can be easier. Less likely need for medical intervention. Baby's less likely to become distressed because if you're lying flat on your back, they're going to be like, oh my God, I'm knackered. Shorter labours, less C-sections, less episiotomies where they have to cut you. So if you're lying flat on your back and the baby's getting really distressed and you're fully dilated, what's likely is going to happen is a doctor's going to come in, baby's a bit distressed, let's get the baby out. Then you're going to start, they're going to get the tools out, you're going to may have to be cut. It just gets a lot more complicated. So yeah, upright and forward. and I can send you this photo if you want it. So like I was saying about oxytocin, what time are we chatting on? Any questions, by the way? There's no questions in the chat. Environment and helping your bodies. Like I was saying, I feel like I'm going dark. Let me turn my screen up a bit. Oxytocin is environment driven. If you're bright white lights in your face, being watched, it's more likely you're not going to be in your kind of rest and digest chilled state. And I remember having, I did a Zoom course last year, I think it was, and I had some Welsh farmers from West Wales, and I was talking about like being observed. And I usually use the cat analogy, like if you have a cat that's having kittens, they're not going to have it in the box in the middle of the living room. They'll go like behind the sofa or in the airing cupboard because they don't want to be watched. They want to feel safe. And he was like, oh yeah, if they're in lambing season, like mostly they put lambs in a shed and they watch the lambs. But if a ewe gets lost or whatever, she always like hides at the top of the corner of the field or behind a tree. He was very excited about that knowledge of his sheep. So environment is key. So turning the lights down, like they've got one of these like galaxy lamps. This is a consultant-led room here in Rochester. I just love this picture because if you had all the lights really bright, it could feel quite intimidating and quite hospital-like. This feels quite cozy. I'd go for a nap there quite happily. But this is a consultant-led room. They've got the like little diffuser going on with some nice smells. They've got the lights dimmed. The bed, you can move the room up. If you rock up into a room in hospital, if you're having a hospital birth, the bed's in the middle of the room, you can move it. Like you're in there for the majority of the time. All the beds are on wheels. Move the thing up, move it around, push it to the side if you don't even want to be on the bed. Ask for a mat, ask for a bounty ball. Go in there and be that pain in the bum person, please. Make a fuss if all the stuff's not there. And then this lady, I thought she was incredible. So she's being continuously monitored. So if you've got any high risk pregnancy or they're concerns about baby at all, they may say the baby needs to be monitored throughout your labor, which are these straps around the tummy and the machine beeping away. This kind of reduces how much movement and stuff and maybe how comfortable you can get. But look at this girl, like she's bossing it. She's on her tiptoes over the edge of the bed, being monitored, but not lying flat on her back. And I just loved her. And the partner is really supportive here. Poor sick bucket, flannel on her neck, keeping her cool. I think she's bossing it, in a really consultant-led place. She's doing quite amazingly. And then it's a big thing for me, and I'm really, really passionate about advocating, is making your informed decisions. You taking control. We are getting more and more medicalized. When my son was born 5 years ago, the C-section rate around us was about 25%. The induction rate was about 20%. And now things are a lot more medicalized. C-section rates are much higher. Induction rates at the moment around us are around 40%. And this is because, please don't quote me on this, but this is my opinion. Hospitals are getting more risk averse. People will say, oh, you're high risk at this, you're high risk at that. And asking that question of like, what is the stats of that high risk? So they might say, oh, you're twice as likely to la-di-da. It may be that you're twice as likely, but that's going from 0.5% to 1% likely. You've doubled in likeliness, but that risk is really low. So having those open conversations and not letting the medical people take over. So if you're having an appointment and the midwife might say something like, oh yeah, you're close to 40 weeks, you better be induced tomorrow. You might risk blah, blah, blah. I'd say, what is the risk? You might be like, well, it's risky going over 40 weeks. And say, why is it risky about going over 40? What are the stats? Most midwives are amazing. And it's usually the consultants around here that kind of talk a bit more that way. But making sure you're in control. So the only thing legally you have to do as parents to be throughout your pregnancy, throughout your labor, throughout your parenthood, the only one thing you have to do is register your baby when it's born legally. So when they say you have to do this and you have to do that, you don't. Obviously, if there is a concern for your baby, doctors and midwives, they're the experts, but making sure you're in control of that conversation. And there's a really good little acronym I like to use. You can use Brian if that sticks in your head better. But Brian, so in a conversation with a midwife or a doctor or someone, and they're suggesting something. You want to go away from that conversation knowing that you've asked the right questions, that you think, yeah, do you know what, I agree with that, or actually that sounds a bit dodgy, I would like a second opinion, because these things really do affect what happens in your labour. So if they're saying, oh, I think you should be induced tomorrow, say that, okay, I appreciate your opinion, but what are the benefits of me being induced tomorrow? And they might say, oh, you know, less risk of, they'll probably shout out the big scary stillborn, less likely to have a stillborn if you're induced tomorrow. You'd be like, oh my God, that's really scary, let's be induced tomorrow. Ask the stats. What's the risk? What's the percentage? How likely is this to happen? And what is the risk? So flip it around. So the benefits of being induced is you and baby might be safer. What are the risks for that induction, as an example? The risks of induction are labour can be really long because your body might not be ready to start having contractions. It may be really medicalised when you didn't have any high risk before that. And what are the alternatives? So the 8 alternatives, and say, okay, so you're suggesting being induced tomorrow. What other alternatives have we got? And she might really appreciate that question, the midwife. She'll be like, great, okay. We'll just put some light on. Good question. Alternatives, yeah. Go home, have sex, have a curry, go for a walk, see what happens. Come and see me in 2 days. And that could be a really good alternative. I is instinct, and I really believe in gut, following your gut. What does your gut say? If you think, yeah, I really trust her, I think that's the best decision, I agree, great. If you think, where did that come from? I feel really coerced or really pushed into that, listen to your gut. And a really good question, and this is a really good in labour, if they're trying to kind of get mingling on your birth, nothing. What if we do nothing? What if actually I trust my body to birth my baby when things are ready and get on with the job? What if we do nothing for a set of time? So, you know, what if I do nothing for 2 days? I'm not going to go and be induced. You probably will go into labour. So yeah, the acronym BRAIN is a really good one, and I use this in life. So when it was like lockdown and then the nurseries opened up, I was like, do I send my son to nursery? Could we die from COVID? Could we all drive ourselves mad at home? I used my brain, and he went to nursery. Right, I'm chatting a lot. I realise I've been chatting for how long? I find my time, I've lost my time now. I don't know. Breathing techniques. So somebody asked me, somebody that couldn't come tonight sent me a question about breathing techniques. And like I said, it's really important. You know, we all know the benefits of breathing now, mindfulness, kind of Wim Hof, all this thing, breath works in, I think, talked about a lot more these days. But you don't have to be Wim Hof to practice good breathing. When I feel a bit panicked, I have a lot less panic attacks these days, but when I was kind of in that postnatal period and I felt panicky, concentrating on my breathing was always a thing that helped me, and distracting myself. So when you're feeling worried, like I said, you're probably breathing from your heart and your lungs really high up, really fast, and you really want to calm your breath. Concentrating on your breathing gives your mind something to focus on. So if your mind's running off, oh, what's happening, la, 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 by concentrating on your breathing, you're in this moment right now, and it gives you really something to focus on, which generally makes you calmer. By breathing calmly and slowly in your labour, you're getting that oxygen in the blood to your uterus muscles that need it. They need to be able to do that lifting and that pushing. And I think it's just generally good stuff now. Like, I try and teach my 5-year-old to calm down and breathe, and they're doing this in schools. You know, we know the benefit of good breathing. One to take away is, I'm not going to talk, this is a calm breath, which is quite a subtle one, but a really good one I'd like you to all practice now is called the rectangle breath. And this is a really good one. Some people say, I really struggle like doing this breathing because my mind just goes everywhere. So this has a visualization attached to it, and you can kind of follow it quite easily. So the rectangle breath, we're going to inhale. So this screen is rectangle, or you could find any rectangle in the room where you are. You inhale the short part. So with calm kind of breathing, you always exhale for longer. So you inhale the short part, hold it for a second, and then you slowly exhale. As slow as you can. So do it with me for a minute. I was having ladies when it was locked down and they were having to flip in birth on their own. This was a really good one because obviously they're super scared of being on their own. So I just say, find a rectangle near your window, a radiator, a door. You inhale the short part and you slowly exhale. And the longer you can exhale, the better. It means you're calmer. It means all that blood and oxygen is going to your uterus. So inhale a short part, exhale a long part. Next time you're waiting in the doctor's surgery or the hospital or whatever, and you feel a bit worried, or you might be on a call with work and stressing out, you can do this quite easily. Nobody knows you're doing it, and it just brings everything calm. It calms your brain, it calms anxiety. Yeah, breathe. Just breathe. Right, what's next? Oh yeah, any questions? So I've got some questions that people emailed in. Has anyone got any questions? These are, like I said, this is a few kind of snippets of what I think is really important when going into thinking about your birth preparation. Yeah, is there any question? Like I said, I know stuff from the area, so if you're labouring at a certain hospital or under a certain team, and you want some questions, please, I'm here. I'm a local doula, so you can take yourself off mute if you want to ask them, or you can drop them in the chat if you're munching.
Is there a best time to do it, Caris, in terms of timings? Obviously I'm 24 weeks, you know, is it better to do it closer to your birth so that it's fresh in your mind, or is it better that you do it, you know, before, so you've got longer to practice? Is there an ideal time?
So I've had people at like 38 weeks calling me up saying, oh shit, I'm 38 weeks, I forgot. And I've had people at like 14 weeks. I always kind of say ballpark figure after a 20-week scan, you kind of have that reassurance, baby's well and everything's doing good. I would say personally, the more time to practice, the better. So if you're in kind of your second, going into your third trimester, you've got those good chunks of weeks to calm your brain, practice the things, have the conversations. And then you can always revisit it. So, you know, if you hit 40 weeks, you think, God, what was it? We haven't talked about it for a few weeks. You can revisit it. So with my courses, I've been doing in-person courses. I've got this new venue actually. And I give a online course. I'm part of a collective called the Birth Uprising, and they've got like a 12-hour recorded course. So I give that to all my clients on top of it. So it might be that you do the course kind of, you know, 20 odd weeks, and then you can go back and I'll give you things to look at. So you can go back and do some kind of homework if you feel like, I don't think you would feel like it's a long time ago, but you might feel like, oh, what was that thing that we spoke about? Or so yeah, I kind of say after your 20-week scan, but everyone's different. People are busy, and then they come to me a bit later. Thanks for the question. That was one of my questions I'd emailed actually. So somebody asked about breathing techniques, and like I said, there are a lot of kind of names of breathing techniques when it comes to, if you're reading any hypnobirthing books or anything, there's like the calm breath and the up breath and the down breath, and as long as you're focusing on your breathing and it's calm and it's got a rhythm, don't worry about what's it called if you're doing the right technique. And you will find a rhythm when you're in labor. You get into a rhythm when you're in established labor, and it might be that you breathe, or it might be that you make a sound like a cow, it may be that you tap, it may be that you rock. You'll find a rhythm, and it sounds weird thinking about it before you've ever had a baby, but I promise you will. And it's kind of like a coping mechanism, and I see a lot of ladies when I'm with them in their labor, kind of, if there's music in the background, doing this during their contractions, or, you know, tapping, and you'll find a rhythm. But breathing, basically, just as long as you're breathing calmly, and when you're having a contraction, making that out breath as long as possible, which I think most people naturally do anyway. So that's a question about breathing. Did anyone else have any other questions? Is anyone out there? I've had a few from email, so I will answer them. And if anyone thinks of anything along the way, then please unmute yourselves. Somebody said they are high risk. They've been labelled high risk, so they will definitely be going consultant-led. Somebody said, is there any point in doing any hypnobirthing if I know I'm going to be consultant-led? And I would like to say even more so. Even more so. If you have no issues and you have completely low risk and your pregnancy's been a breeze and you're really, really healthy and you're planning a home birth, the hypnobirthing, you probably just kind of brush on the surface. If you're going consultant-led, you need to be more prepared. You need to be more practiced in the what if. So what if a bunch of doctors on their rounds come in during your contraction, or how do you navigate those conversations? How do you make the environment nicer? How do you make sure you feel safe? So if you're worried that you're kind of going consultant led, I'd say hypnobirthing, birth prep in general is even more important. And like I said, even people who haven't planned C-sections come to me, because often it's the run up to birth that the hypnobirthing helps as well for. My last question was a very honest one, and I really appreciate it, especially as we know things are going to get bloody expensive soon, if not they haven't already. I went to Co-op the other day and bought like 4 things and it cost 10 quid. So somebody asked me, how can they afford the course? And they really want to do it. How can they afford it? Could they pay in installments? And I'm really passionate. So I live in Harpenden now, which is, if anyone knows, pretty affluent. I am a council house girl. I grew up in West Wales, and I'm very, very passionate about birth prep, hypnobirthing being, and doula support available to everybody. So it doesn't matter how much you earn. I really want to make it affordable. So please, if this is an issue, get in touch. I often do kind of, if I do a Zoom course, I'll do like a pay what you can place, and I'm happy to do that in the venue as well. Otherwise, I've had people give me a £50 deposit and then pay over 4 months. So it's a bit more affordable. Whatever works for you. Like, I don't want money to be an issue. So please, if you're thinking, God, I've just bought this and there's a pushchair and there's this and that, this is more important than any material item you'll ever buy. And I remember my doula coach lady that I trained with saying, she convinced somebody to buy a second-hand pushchair. The first time, mum, you always think, well, I better get a brand new pushchair. By the way, like, they'll get dirty within a week. They cost so much money. So she convinced her client in the end to book her as a doula, which is a large amount of money really, and buy a second-hand pushchair for 100 quid. And she said that's better value of money in the long run for your mental health, because what happens in birth, it's going to stick with you forever. And yeah, please invest in that. And if you don't want to go with me, like, no offense, like, please read some books. If you want some book recommendations, if you've got Audible or whatever, there's loads of hypnobirthing books. There's loads of podcasts, there's loads of free info. And there's courses online, you know. Like I said, I give that recorded course for free with my course. But if you just wanted to do that, it's 45 quid from the Birth Uprising. You know, it's recorded, so you can't stop and ask questions and meet people and stuff like that. But please, like, put some effort or put some time into birth prep. And if it's just reading a book, then I think it'll be really beneficial for you. Time is it? Ooh, one time, I'm usually really over. So yeah, how do you get my support? Like I said, I do the hypnobirthing classes in Harpenden. I've got a nice new venue in the middle of the countryside. I do Zoom. So if I know some people signed up in Wales, and there was one person in Singapore and one person in Nottingham. I asked where you guys were based. So if you are, I still do stuff on Zoom and it still works really well. And then I do doula work. So I am very privileged that people ask me to attend their births as a second birth partner usually. And then I do postnatal work. So postnatal doulaing is something I wish I knew existed. My God, my son was refluxy, never wanted to be put down, never let me do anything. I remember carrying him as a newborn and trying to butter toast at the same time. That's impossible because your toast just moves along the counter holding the baby. So postnatal doulas, they come into your home, and my client is the mother or the birthing person, not the baby. So I'm not a childminder, I'm not a nanny. I'm here to mother the mother. So we've got no support nearby. Like, our family are in Aberystwyth, my parents are no longer here. So yeah, like I said, once Owen, my partner, went back to work at 2 weeks, I was left literally holding the baby. And honestly, I wish I knew about postnatal doulas 5 years ago, because I think it would have helped my postnatal kind of journey a huge amount. So I do things like, basic things like holding the baby so you can have a shower and wash and dry your hair, create nice meals, make sure you're eating, make sure one of my clients recently was just eating Easter eggs for lunch. I was like, you're breastfeeding, you're healing from birth, you're trying to like parent another kid, you're not going to survive very well or very long on an Easter egg. As pudding is fine, but I try and create some nice meals, bit of housework, sticking the dishwasher on, tidying up your laundry and stuff like that. But yeah, postnatal doulaing, I wish I knew about it. I really wish I knew. And there's loads of good postnatal doulas. So if you don't like me, please get in touch and I can point you some direction of other people. Yes, so that's it. Let me stop sharing. Anyone got any questions? Carly, it's only your lovely face I can see. Thank you for that. Please unmute yourselves or drop it in the chat if you've got any questions. So after this, I'll be sending an email with some downloadable things. I've recorded this, so I'll stick it on YouTube and send the link to those who couldn't make it. And I'll be giving a cheeky 10% discount if you guys want to book on a course with me. I've got one in September starting on the 6th, Tuesday nights, and I'm going to do one in November as well. I'm trying to do one every half term that fits in around kind of my birth, so I've got booked in as well. So I'll be sending a discount if you want to book on, but please, like I said, if finances are an issue, get in touch, please, and then we'll sort something out. I'd rather have you there at half the price than not have you there at all. If there's no questions, or if you wanted to chat privately, so if you've got something a bit more personal to ask, the email I'll send tonight has got a link and you can make an appointment to chat to me through my calendar. So if it's a bit personal, you don't want to ask in front of these people, please get in touch. Thank you. Thanks so much for being here. I know it's hot and sweaty and you probably just want to lounge on the sofa, so I'll let you go.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thanks for coming. And if I don't hear from you, please boss your birth. Be amazing. You'll be amazing. Enjoy it. Yeah. See you later, guys. Thanks so much. Bye.